thank you everyone for joining our BJSS webinar today, Finding the New Balance, which is about finding opportunities through remote working. We are recording the session and we do want you to ask as many questions as you can, so use the Q&A functionality. So without further ado, I will hand over to Sarah, who will be chairing today's panel.
Hello, thank you. Thank you very much, Karen. And it's an absolute pleasure today to be asked to facilitate this panel of fantastic people. I'm Sarah Tulip. I'm the Digital Director at EY. I'm also the founder of an organisation called Wild. I'm the Digital Ambassador for Leeds. So just to give you an overview of hopefully why I've been asked to do this. Today we've got an amazing group of leaders from, I guess, across the city, but wider. BJSS is headquartered in Leeds, but some of their wider team as well. And you know, the topic is really something close to everybody's heart at the moment. It's something that's on everybody's mind. So I first of all like to get the panel to introduce themselves. So Becca, if we start with you, if you want to give us a bit of an overview, who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So my name is Becca Duncan. I'm a people and change consultant at BJSS. I am also the diversity and inclusion lead for consulting across BJSS with a focus on inclusion. And I really have a keen interest and work a lot with employers on, you know, the ways of working and how you support your people through changes in the company. So I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. Rachel, you next.
Hello, my name's Rachel Achille and I'm a manager at EY, focusing on change transformation and talent management. EY supports lots of businesses in those spaces and I'm really pleased to be here today too.
Thanks. Svetlana?
Hi, it's great to be here. I'm Svetlana Tanagurska. I'm head of delivery for London arm of kind of BJSS tech delivery part. So I'm looking after our teams that are kind of based in London. Yeah, this includes, I guess, people and quality of delivery and everything in between. So have a very keen interest in the subject.
And finally, but not least, Anna?
Hello, thanks for having me today. My name is Anna Sutton. I am co-founder and chief exec of The Data Shed. We are a team of about 45, so from a context point of view, I'll be talking from a management of a smaller business from home over the next hour. So it's just a bit slightly different.
Fantastic. So, you know, we're talking about finding opportunities to remote working, and I think there seems to be now an overwhelming acceptance of work flexibility, or at least there is for now. That might change moving forwards. But I think it would be really interesting to start off with each of your stories, because I think there's a combination of personal stories and also work stories and how that's affected you. So maybe start with you again, Becca. It'd be interesting to hear what your journey's been like during the changes.
Yeah, I've had, I think, a little bit of a journey. I think it's very noticeable, the differences that everyone's going through, because we're looking directly into people's lives for the past 4 or 5 months and going forward as well. And there's been some ups and downs. You know, I think as somebody who, in the industry that I work in, I'm always working remotely from somebody. So I think some of the positives that we'll get on to include being able to really connect a lot better with people, because actually I'm not the one on the telephone when everyone else is in the office. But, you know, some of the more difficult troubles are actually very practical things, like, you know, working in shared house with one internet provider and trying to wrangle your way through that. But, you know, overall, I think something that's really come out to me about this past few months is the impact that having a more flexible approach to working can have on different people, and particularly considering all of the differences that we have and how a flexible approach to working allows us to take an approach that really works for us.
Yeah, fantastic. And I agree. I mean, the way that we work was decided a really long time ago and we haven't really revisited it. So it has kind of pushed us to make decisions. Anna, what about you?
I wasn't expecting that then. Well,
yeah, mixed it up.
So obviously it's been an interesting 6 months. We already had a couple of people who were part working from home anyway. So when it looked like we're going to have to work from home, all of us, for an extended period of time, we kind of handed over to them as the experienced members of the team to give us all some training on how to use Teams properly and how to manage work-life balance and top tips for working from home. I think the thing that, because we're a smaller business and we all work out of one office, it's really missing that camaraderie of the team being around and working out how we recreate that real kind of team-based culture while we're all working sporadically across a much wider space. And also obviously we've had the challenge of juggling childcare and the parents, and also people who are, you know, obviously couldn't work core hours as they normally would have. So it's been a real challenge, but I think the team have massively lived up to that challenge and really come through. And I think it's been a huge education process for all of us about what does and doesn't work and what we would like to take forward as a team.
Yeah, and it's that difference between, you know, we talk about flexible working and working from home, but I think what a lot of us was doing was absolutely not that. It was forced at home with lots of things, you know, lots of things that you weren't expecting. So,
yeah, I was the one kind of vigorously shaking my head. Yeah, well, there is personal story here. I have 2 children, and it's been very tough, and I'm the one who struggled with the whole kind of working from home big time, because I felt like I'm failing on both fronts, as a mother and as a leader, because I like felt like I'm just like stretched in so many directions at the same time. And homeschooling is evil. So yeah, it was just all a bit too much. Yes, it is, right? So yeah, I guess I'm very positive about this possibility of a silver lining in the longer term. I think it's an amazing opportunity to rethink how we work. I think in the end of all this, people will end up in a better place, and because there is already kind of this wide acceptance that it's all about outcome, doesn't matter where people are, it's not 9 to 5 kind of be at the factory kind of job. But I guess in the current moment, the problem is that obviously we don't have much choice. So many people kind of, well, we kept our offices open throughout, but not many people as me kind of, it's not easy to get here. It's central London. If you live outside London, people are uncomfortable with taking trains and so on, which is kind of totally cool, right? And kind of government advises to stay from home, to work from home. But I think it is just, at the moment, it is just a bit tough. It's like not having a choice really. But we stay positive.
Yeah, and it's interesting, but just before I move to you, Rachel, I had a conversation yesterday, and somebody said to me, a really senior figure had been in a meeting, a political meeting, and said that they probably won't, if they did find a vaccination, it would be 4 or 5 months, and then it would take another 4 or 5 months for everybody to get it. So they were imagining that it's probably this time next year before the situation is going to change. So there's like how we were, lockdown, the new normal, then the normal. It feels like we're still in transition.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Rachel, what about your journey so far?
So it's been really interesting. I guess as a consultant, a lot of my role takes me client side, so I'm doing quite a lot of traveling. So the idea of being based in one office isn't necessarily true for me. But certainly what's happened for both, you know, myself and the way that we work with clients is that, you know, from being at home and having to adapt to that working from home scenario is the homeschooling, but also having to interact with both your clients and your peers in a different way. So I think I personally found lockdown quite, you know, a lot easier than traveling, because there's less travel involved, means that you can spend more time dedicated to your outcomes and getting those sorted. My son's slightly older, so I don't have to, the homeschooling is not as difficult, I think, as when you've got toddlers that you're trying to entertain and keep engaged or get them out of the way. So I haven't really had that issue. And actually what it's allowed is a lot more time for engagement with my peers. So being able to have kind of virtual meetings, it was a novelty, I guess, at the beginning, but then in a way you kind of get Teams overload, don't you? When you just kind of, your jaw's aching because you're talking all the time and you're switched on all the time, as it were, and you don't really get those water cooler moments that you get when you're in the office and you can, so I think that for me, I suppose, is probably what's missing. I don't have the opportunity to have those kind of offline conversations that you gain from. So because everything's very kind of task oriented. But I can't speak without the opportunity to talk about, you know, some of the tools and that we've put together at EY to support businesses. So we're using them ourselves, but we're also supporting other businesses to think about how they can rework the way that people engage. So everything from, so our MD talks about homing, roaming, hub and club. So that's very much around, you know, we're all working from home now. You know, there will be that ability to roam. So working from a cafe or hotspotting somewhere. Then there's the hub, which is what the office will soon become. So you're going in there just to do a project or to have a meeting or that kind of thing. And then the club is that social aspect, and those will be those 4 dimensions of working that we might be finding ourselves moving into for the future.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Rachel. So I guess that takes us on to thinking about, okay, so you know, Anna Sutton, and I think after this everybody try and jump in, and let's see if we can make it as free as possible without us jumping over each other. And just remind everybody as well, there is a Q&A box, so if you want to ask people questions or, you know, like find out more, please use it. So we were talking about the workplace, and I know that, you know, your business, it's a fantastic business, but we were talking about innovation, and innovation is a huge part of technology and digital and how we work and how we create things. And I'm really interested, you know, if we're finding opportunities through remote working, is innovation one of them, or is it something that we need something slightly different for?
This is one of the key bugbears of mine about this whole process. So, I mean, I'm a massive office fan. I mean, I'm sat in the office now, but I'm only here because we've had to sort out the fire system today. So the landlord asked me to come in. So I'm not breaching Boris' promise. So I think we've really struggled on the innovation front. I mean, we're still being innovative, and we're still having those conversations, but I think the thing that's really missing is that chemistry and that spontaneity that you have when you've got a team in the office and think, oh, that's a great idea, let's just go and chat about that and let's draw it out on the whiteboard. I mean, this office, I mean, you've been there, haven't you? It is literally covered in whiteboards because it's kind of really reflects how the team think and how we like to work together. And I know that there are tools that you can use, but we've not yet found a way of using them, and we probably will eventually, but I just don't think we're ever going to recreate that real spontaneous kind of chemistry chat where you just get together, you've got a great idea and you really buzz off each other. And I think that's where I really struggle. I'm a real people person, and I think screens really get in the way of that kind of chemistry.
And what do you guys like at BJSS at the minute? Just thinking, you know, Becca, Svetlana, is it like, how are you guys managing that, or how are you guys trying to innovate around it? Or
yeah, I mean, we're doing our best. I think it was great, kind of big learning curve for everyone, and never ever I've used Miro so much in my life, and it's amazing. But I guess, as Anna is saying, it's not the same. I think we adapted, and we are doing very well, and we are doing our best. And we did kick off, I think, about 50 or 60 new projects, maybe even more actually, kind of last time I counted, I think back in June, like since all the lockdown started. So it is definitely possible. It is possible to do discoveries, it is possible to innovate, it is possible to co-create, but it's not the same.
No, it's not the same. And Rachel, do you want to add? Yeah, I was going to say, you want to add to that? And it's interesting as well, because then, you know, we think about offices, and for me, you know, I'm somebody who learns from people around me, so I watch what somebody else does and I imitate it. Who's the best at that? I'm going to learn, I'm going to sit with them, and that's, you know, a lot of how I've developed as an individual. Maybe Becca, like, I don't know what you think about your teams and the people around you. Do you think there are people who really need the humans? Do we need to be in an office? You know, do we need prospects?
Yeah,
I think particularly for young people,
and for new joiners.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, everyone does it. I mean, I'm the same as you, Sarah. So, you know, you want to role model what you see to be, you know, really good behaviors and stuff. And I think that's a challenge, I guess, for a lot of businesses, for CEOs particularly, to look about at how they're going to do virtual leadership.
Okay. Anybody else want to come in on that around sort of who needs to, you know, what effect maybe that's having on junior people, or you know, maybe from a task, but as a wellness as well. Mm-hmm. Becca?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having another home office incident with my internet. I think it's really tricky for people who are more junior in particular. I mean, I think for all of us, because we all go into the office to learn, and I think there's things that are just, even just the way that people facilitate meetings, or, you know, those people skills, that those sort of soft skills that are more difficult to learn, you know, over a webcam, and sometimes they're just observed, as you say, Sarah. I think that for a lot of us it's tricky. I think particularly for more junior people it's tricky. I think right now, you know, if I'm a line manager, I'm thinking, you know, I'd probably want to be thinking about what can I do to support people in that growth, despite the fact that we're not in the office. Unfortunately, you know, we're all facing a shared problem. There's not much we can do about it. So we have to think a way around it. As a change person, sometimes I quite like removing the alternatives, because it forces you to get innovative and think about another way. So I think in the long run, you know, maybe this is going to be a really good thing for us. I really believe it will be, because it's going to force us to take that jump into digital and take that leap of actually something that I think for years and years and years, as the, you know, rise of the internet, and we've got more digital in our life all the time. And, you know, I hear people all the time going, oh, well, you know, young people aren't connecting, and young people are saying, well, yeah, we are actually, we're just using social media to do it. I think we're going to be forced into doing that at work, which, you know, as you said, I said earlier, those norms were set years, a very long time ago, before any of us were here. So this is, I think, really going to challenge that. It's going to make us really think outside the box about how do we grow those connection skills, because if we've got another year of it, we can't afford to lose all of that time. It's time to kind of capitalize on that and come out with new ideas, and it's best time to test it.
What do you think, Svetlana?
Well, I think we definitely need to kind of not to take our kind of, well, foot off the pedal, kind of eyes off the ball, because it is, I think that's the biggest challenge for us for the next kind of, I don't know how many, 9, 6, 12 months, because humans need humans, people need connections, and that's the reality, right? And you have more endorphin when you have real eye contact. It's like, yes, we're gonna compensate as much as we can, and I think we need to go way above and beyond, extra mile and then another extra mile in recreating those personal connections. We have this kind of amazing community of squad leads. So there's people who are kind of primarily have this like pastoral care responsibility. So there are like about 8 to 10 people in the squad. And since the very beginning kind of the lockdown, we've been kind of very adamant that, look guys, kind of there is no more kind of important people than you right now in the whole organization. Your role is so important, and you must keep that community together, and you must reach out to everyone like regularly, and it is kind of very big part of your job, and don't think it is not important, because it is, and as kind of trying to keep an eye how everyone is doing. But again, back I think to where we started, I think there are some people for whom it is much harder, and people who are shielding or have members of families who are shielding, and they're very limited. I have people who haven't seen their parents for like 8 months, and they don't know when they're going to see them again. Or you have grads living in shared accommodations who've been working from their bedrooms for last, again, like 6 months, and then kind of looking forward to another like 6 months. So it's all having its toll on people's mental health. And I can see a question kind of in Q&A box about kind of what can be done. But yes, I really don't think there is bigger challenge for the business than this right now.
I agree. And maybe taking that further with you, Anna, you know, you've got a young team in the business. The questions around, you know, looking after teams' mental well-being, and it's saying long-term, not just short-term. Do you have thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that was our biggest concern when we went into lockdown. I remember being sat in the boardroom with our senior teams, eight of us, I think, can't count, and we wrote every single shedder's name up on the whiteboard, and we split them up into, and each one of us took a group of shedders from across the business. So no one who works for me, so full cross-section, so we could keep that cross-team conversation going, and we could all keep an eye on how each team was happening. And I appreciate that's easy for a smaller business like ours, but things like investing in mental health first aiders, investing in technology, where you can keep temperature checking how the team are doing, and we've been doing those things for quite a while now, and actually they've been a real godsend to us in in the last 6 months, because we can kind of keep tabs on how the team are feeling. But I think the thing that is really difficult is you can't see. You can see people's body language in the office.
Yeah, it's easy to put a smile on, isn't it? If you know, I just need to put a smile on for 1 hour for this call, then I can go back and have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
You know, you can't tell, can you?
Walking around the office, you can really get a feel for the ambience in the room. And you know, we've had probably one of the busiest months we've ever had at the Data Shed this last month, and it's been very stressful for a lot of people. And you know, I've got a few people who are just saying how I check in with them and they check in with others, so it's almost like a phone tree, like in America when people ring up and tell everybody. It's just, I'm really conscious of how the team are doing. I mean, we've got a big knees up on Friday where we've sent everybody alcohol or soft drinks, which are also available, so we can all have a chat and figure out how everyone's doing, and just have a big celebration of how we've all managed to pull through this month together. But I do think that while there are tools out there that you can use to keep track of everybody, and you can have as many coffees as you want with people, that it's going to be difficult to stay on top of people. All you can do is promote the avenues that you've got, so things like those, the helplines that people can ring, or you know, your mental health first aiders, like I say, that you can only do the best you can do with while you're sat.
And I think that's the thing, that people have been through all these different this bell curve, you know, that initially we were all at like a state of emergency, then people were crying in Zoom calls, and then, you know, this became a normal, and then now people have had a break at the summer and there's a lethargy, and it's like everybody's probably at different stages of the journey, and probably at trauma as well. So I'm not sure if anybody else wants to add to that, or things that they've seen around mental health or doing around mental health that, you know, people can learn from or hear from at all. Anything?
So I think, you know, what we're seeing across different businesses is, I think Anna hit the nail on the head in terms of, you know, some of those changes that businesses are having to make with regards to, you know, looking at line management and, you know, pastoral care becoming something that's really important, because when you're not in the office, you don't get a vibe of, you know, how someone's feeling. You can't really take a temperature check from a half-hour Zoom call. So, you know, establishing those close relationships and networks, you know, does become more important. And the manager's role is also going to be changing, especially if this is going to be the new normal. And I think also, and the her mention of the mental health first aid, you know, is a brilliant addition. And certainly, you know, having someone who can triage or check in with everybody, I think, you know, is a brilliant addition to any business. But certainly the use of technology, and, you know, how, you know, because I think, you know, from our perspective at EY, we've gone from, okay, I have a laptop and mobile phone, to I have a laptop, mobile phone, and I've just been sent a desktop, you know, a monitor, and I now have a comfortable chair. It's really important to think about the ergonomics, and because all these things play a part in someone's well-being. And then I think moving forward, as I think most businesses were doing, they were starting to prioritize who needs to go back into the office based on whether you live at home, or the practicalities of the role that you do means that actually you're better off being in the office. I know that all of that is changing somewhat with all that's going on, but it's important to bear these things in mind to maintain productivity.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I think one of the key things that came up in EY was people who had domestic situations. It arose, there are lots of people who are living in very difficult situations, and actually when you are locked down with somebody where it's bad already, that's been very, very difficult for people. So before we move on to the next section, there was just one more question that came in from Lisa Robinson. Has anybody introduced any new reward or recognition methods? I think that's interesting. Does anybody, you know of anything that they've done at the moment?
I think we kind of just were looking, or like what I've done kind of as a team, so I look after, we just, I think recognition bit didn't change. It is just, if before we would take the whole team out for lunch or for drinks, now we just started sending kind of hampers and chocolates and brownies just to celebrate kind of go live or some successful release, and kind of saying kind of, well done guys, you're amazing. I think kind of it's not significantly different. I think but it's important just to keep kind of, again, keep recognizing people and saying thank you even more. And we're also thinking about Christmas, because obviously Christmas party is off the cards now. So.
Yeah. I was just saying actually in bed this morning, is everyone going to dress up for like Halloween at home because we can't all go out and trick or treat? Are we all going to like, I was quite excited about that thought. It may not happen, but it's just something that's on my mind at the moment. So I thought we've got 20 minutes and I'd like to get some of the other topics. So one of the things that, and I think Becca, this would be interesting for you to lead on with your, you know, your other hat, workplace inclusivity and diversity. And actually, what does this mean around that space? You know, is it more inclusive now, less inclusive? What are your thoughts?
What a question.
It's a big topic.
Just throw that out there. So something that I've had personally, and it's really made me think a lot about it, is so my partner is differently abled and has narcolepsy, and actually it makes it very difficult for her to be in the office. And I know of a number of other, you know, differently able people who've found similar circumstances by being at home. There is a link, I think, between that and mental health, a huge link. And I know that a lot of people who feel comfortable in their own space, in their house, where things are set up for them, particularly where an office is difficult to set up, you know, it's very difficult to get it right for everyone. So, you know, it's absolutely, you know, it's not an easy task. But when you have your home working space set up to support you, it can feel, for people who do suffer from mental health issues or anything else, just where that, you know, having that space to feel yourself and be yourself, it's been a real benefit to be at home. And I think that in some cases, but not all, has contributed to people being maybe more genuine with people when they're on calls, because you're speaking to somebody from already, you know, you can see I've got a bedroom behind me because I'm also I'm a shared houser, and already, you know, you're in my space and I'm in yours, and I think people find it a lot easier to speak genuinely like that. And I think a lot of our problems when it comes to being inclusive in the workplace is often that we don't know what's going on in somebody else's mind. I don't know what, you know, I haven't lived a day in the life of anybody on this call's shoes. So if you can tell me a bit better how it feels, because we're in each other's spaces, I think that's something that has come up and that has been a positive. On the other hand, a lot of people living alone, you know, when we talk about mental health, I mean, I think it has been very difficult for a lot of people, and we all know that and probably have all felt it. But you know, the final thing I'll say before I hand to somebody else to add to the discussion is that, you know, I think nothing brings a team together better than a shared challenge. So, you know, when we think about inclusivity in the space, we're all facing the shared challenge, which is something that a lot of our lives, I think, we probably haven't faced because we all live very different lives, but now we all have a very similar challenge to work towards.
Agreed. I think that, Rachel, you talked about personally, which I thought was really interesting, that race and the colour of your skin has thrown up some challenges for you, which I think is, no one talks about it, Rachel. No one says it.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just, I think the whole teams thing, it's something that I guess you don't appreciate when you're kind of on client site or when you're working in an office. But for me, certainly, working from home, being on a camera, what you often find is that, you know, the screen is so dark that people can't really see you, you know, so, you know, having the correct lighting and so on and so forth. And I think also for me personally as an individual, a lot of where I draw my energy from is from interactions, and you don't get that same level of rapport built when you're, you know, online as you would when you're face to face with people. But certainly I also, you know, I've got friends who've been having interviews over Zoom and Teams, and who've said that they found it challenging because, you know, your features don't really show, or, you know, you have to put lighting so close to your face in order for them to be able to see you that actually, you know, it distracts you, but you're doing it for the benefits of the interviewers. And I think, you know, just from that kind of perspective, it does feel, you know, slightly disadvantageous for people of colour, but, you know, I'll only speak for myself.
Yeah, but no, and I think there was, you know, recently on my Twitter feed, there was a guy who was, he was black, really dark, and whenever he put a Zoom background on, his head chopped off, actually because the tech wasn't built in an inclusive way.
Yeah.
You know, this is, you know, it's not okay.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, because his skin was just too dark for it to comprehend. So, you know, it's not fully inclusive, the technology that we're using even at the moment. do you have any thoughts? Because, you know, there's things around, okay, you know, some people this is, you know, positive, some people this is negative. Has there been impacts from your team at all? I don't know, sort of junior members of staff, do you feel that that's been more open to, have you had anybody come back to you that you feel it's been around D&I that's been positive or negative?
Who are you asking, Sarah? Was that for
you,
me?
Anna, sorry.
All right, sorry, you just cracked up a little bit then. I was like, is that for me?
It's for you.
So I think it's been really important to strike a balance, and I think this is where we're heading with this conversation, isn't it, about making sure that how we come back from this is balanced around figuring out what we do that is best for the majority of people. And I'm really excited about the opportunity that is now available to us to maybe throw out our talent net wider, to make the shed more accessible for more people, to maybe reduce our environmental footprint a little bit in terms of travel. And we've got a few people who work for us who have said they'd really rather not come back to the office full time because they're really enjoying not having the commute. I actually miss my commute because it's the only 20 minutes of every day that I actually have on my own. Really nice way of kind of winding down from the day in the office. But I think I've got to really kind of be mindful of some of my younger team members who really benefit from actually getting out and meeting new people and the communities that they've built. I think the thing that I'm probably most proud of is when I hear about, you know, 3 or 4 of them have gone to the pub together and had a lovely time, not recently, but, you know, they've built their own community.
You can, it's just frowned upon.
Yeah, true. But you know, they've built their own community and they've built their own networks, and, you know, 2 of them have set up a side gig on the side and they've got their own business going on, and, you know, those are the relationships that kind of set you up for life, I think. Some of my best friends now are the people that I met in my early 20s at work. And while that might not work for everybody, I think, you know, we've got to make sure that we give people those opportunities. But also, if, you know, we're on the 3rd and 4th floor and we have a very wonky lift, so it breaks every now and then, and actually to be able to be set up properly so that, you know, people who don't want to come to work or who have a disability that makes, you know, accessibility to the office more difficult, I think that's a great thing that we're all being educated in this way.
Yeah, and I think, you know, probably one of the things we haven't discussed is maybe being women or mothers, or actually the role in has it affected being it's an all-female panel, you know, like has it affected women, you know, and their roles? Has it broken down maybe some of the boys' clubs from a perspective of, you know, like the guys can't, you know, all go off and, you know, have their meetings, or they can, but it's harder because actually the really senior people in businesses aren't as au fait with technology, and now they find it harder to get together. But, you know, has it broken down to that? Does it mean that if you're a mum that you can drop your child off at school and not miss the thing that's happening at 8:30 because, you know, the meeting that normally you'd have to meet, and so you feel like you can't climb in your career because you're never present? Lana, what's your thoughts?
I think it's complicated. I mean, in theory, yes, but I'm quite cynical, I think. I have a feeling that in reality, because it was women who picked up lots of additional load with childcare in families, just because it still tends to be default position, in spite of the fact that we're in 21st century. I think they kind of, they struggle the most, and it hindered them kind of. I think we will see like consequences of this for many years to come. I've also seen some sad statistics that kind of women were kind of disproportionately affected by like the first wave of layoffs in summer, because they're seen as kind of, well, I guess less, I don't know, dedicated, less available, or, you know, like some bad employers assume that by default kind of they can't get that much from a woman because childcare is on her or whatever. So in theory, yes, in our very inclusive, very digital, very progressive tech companies, yes, but across like the board, statistically, I think it is a bit more grim.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that was one of the things that a lot of women, when furlough came up, it was like, you know, we furlough women, they can be at home with their children, they can do those things. But actually, when they brought people back, they were the last people to come back, and now there aren't jobs for them. So yeah, it's had a huge effect on the on the wider female population and what that will look like from employment statistics. Okay, so we've got 10 minutes left, and there was something else that we were going to talk about. I think we touched on it a little bit, but I still think it's important, and it was about relationships and people, and living and working at home, and actually having no boundaries. And you know, I'm in my, you know, some of us are here in our bedrooms, you know, and literally it's so weird to think, you know, that 6 months ago you're going to work and live in your bedroom. You'd be like, absolutely not. Unless you were like, you know, like making phone calls, selling, like, I don't know, have you had an accident or whatever, you didn't expect that to happen. So, you know, the world has changed. So thinking about who should be at home and when, and do you, you know, say, you know, we are able to be back in the office, and I know in Leeds at the minute we're a little bit more locked down, but hopefully that's, you know, short term. How do we feel about that? You know, should the office, what should the office be used for? Who wants to jump in?
In current situation or kind of longer term?
Well, I don't know, you know, we're thinking about the
brilliant, wonderful,
normal,
silver lining, new normal. I think we will face, I don't know, like my wild kind of forecast is that we will end up in a scenario when offices are more like these creative hubs where people come to ideate and get together and get that connection and spend time together and plan and draw on the walls. And I think like they're going to do it hopefully a few days a week, 2, 3. But I also think there is this massive opportunity for people also to have a day or two where they're gonna work from home if this is what works for them, and dedicated to really like this deep focused work, which I think in kind of our classic office environment, we never had opportunity to do because there is always distraction. Someone taps you on the shoulder and say, just a quick question. Whereas kind of now maybe we have this opportunity to set those boundaries a bit kind of better and frame it a bit more kind of consistently, because in the same case, this is like, this is 3 days when all my team is in the office and we are together and we talk and we hug and we go for lunch together and we do all our kind of wild ideation. But then like this is the time when we have this mutual agreement. We don't schedule any meetings. Everyone just focuses on the actual work. And I think it can be interesting because I don't really think we ever had this before. So it's definitely an opportunity.
Cool. Anna, what are your thoughts? Oh, go on, Rachel.
No, I was just going to say, I think it is an opportunity for businesses that want to kind of like, you know, transform the way that they work and transition into, because you can kind of, if you don't necessarily need, if you've got quite a lot of real estate, then maybe you want to condense your office buildings. So it's great from that perspective, but I don't think that we will ever really do away fully with offices. And I think, you know, the more important now than ever that we start looking at building trust within, you know, our businesses, with our people, because that relationship aspect is becoming, it's massively crucial, because as a leader you need to trust your people to be able to do their work, and also trust that if they need support, they're reaching out. You know, as a manager you should also, you know, we've got the pastoral care stuff that we talked about before, and then also as an employee you're then looking to the business to support you to be able to deliver through its tools, and also through, you know, everything else, all the people who you'll be interacting with. And I just think that relationships is a crucial element that businesses need to look at, not just with their employees, but also with their customers. Because I think now, if you were in a contact center, I guess, before, and now you're doing that contact center work that you were talking about from home, Sarah, that would still be fine, I guess, if you didn't have, you know, children running around in the background, and that would be a cost saving for the business. But how are they then rewarding the individual, you know, to kind of, you know, make it worth their while, as it were? You know, is it, you know, you get money back because you're no longer, you know, paying for your commute, or is there something else? I think these are all things that we need to start thinking about.
Great. Anything, Becca, Anna, or we've got 5 minutes left, so otherwise I was going to do a bit of a quick fire round. Okay, let's leave it there. Let's have, we've got 5 minutes. So we've talked about, you know, where we've been and what we'll take forward and what we'll leave behind. So maybe we'll go around really quick and maybe name one thing that you want to take forward that we have learned from being locked down. So Lana, I know you're thinking, so can you think of one thing that you would like to see being taken forward that we've learned during this time?
I think appreciation for little moments. because when I realized that I can't control big world, I just learned to focus on small world. And I spent lockdown with my parents kind of in Bournemouth, and I would just take children to the beach and buy watermelon, and this would make my day.
Love it. Anna, what would you take forward with you?
I think the thing that's really resonated with me over the last 6 months is how lucky we were that we invested so much in our culture before this all happened. I think a lot of people think that culture is a bit hippy-dippy and maybe not something that's got value, but I think actually the thing that I think really resonates for me is how much importance that culture actually has, and how much in driving that forward and making sure we continue to invest in it even more so moving forward.
Rachel?
My honest thought is echoing a lot of what Anna said. I think it's the importance of culture. So one of the things that I've really enjoyed is the inclusive nature of the way that we work at EY, making sure that we're kind of, accountable, and that we're, responsible for each other and checking on each other. I think that that's kind of like, your golden nugget, isn't it? To keep you productive and happy when you're working remotely.
Okay, Becca, what would you take forward?
Mine is to build personal connections. You can't avoid it, not really. I think the more you can build personal connections, it feeds into that culture piece, but it helps us all with our mental health. And I think when you've got a good connection with the people you're working with, your work gets really good. So taking forward, building personal connections with everyone around you.
Excellent. And just to close, what is the thing that you would definitely leave behind? So not during COVID, but one thing that we have left in the past that you don't want to see anymore. Let's go the same way, Svetlana. Oh no, and do you know what? I'm going to let you have a little bit longer. I'm going to let you have an extra minute. Anna Sutton, what is the thing that you would like to leave in the past?
The thing that I'd like to leave in the past, I think it's more related to COVID, permanent screens. I'm just sick to death of talking to people through a screen. And while I want to take that partly forward, I sure as heck don't want to take permanent screens forward. I just don't think it's positive longer term.
Rachel, what would you like to leave in the past?
Pre-meets. A meeting about a meeting.
Oh, I mean, not to slight EY, but that's the most EY thing that I've learned about EY. Pre-meeting about a meeting, all day long.
Yeah, crazy.
Svetlana?
I think I will just echo Anna. I think I'm the one who needs people and who thrives when there are people around. So I really want to leave kind of this complete lockdown experience behind, and no more Zoom Teams days when you are in your screen with a square head for 10 hours.
Agreed. And Becca, what would you leave behind?
I'm going to say not having focus time. I've started to block out, now that I have a bit more time, commute, block out focus time. So not having focus time, I'm going to definitely not just have meetings from 8 till 6. I'm going to have time to focus.
Yeah, it's a good call. So yeah, thank you so much. Everybody has been absolutely wonderful. I think that was a fantastic conversation. Karen, I see you back in the room for the very last minute, so I'll hand back over to you. Thank you for having me today, BJSS.
No, it's been great. Thank you so much, guys. I really enjoyed that, and quite a pertinent topic, given that we thought it might be a different discussion, but obviously thanks to Boris and COVID, it's kind of back in being really relevant what's going to happen. So thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the festival. We hope to see you all soon. Unfortunately, it's probably going to be via Zoom, which I would leave Zoom in the past. I know I can't, but I would leave Zoom in the past. I'm sick of Zoom. I want to speak to people on the phone now. But there you go. So enjoy the rest of the festival, and we will see you all soon.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.